On today's podcast, we are talking about OpenAI's new browser, which is called Atlas. Jaden and I were actually just talking about this offline because Jaden sounds actually kind of psyched about this. Now, full disclosure, I have not tried it yet. I have been on the road, total road warrior, giving keynotes like crazy. It is that time of year, but I had gotten updates, frantic updates from my guy, Robert Haslam, who works with me at AI Mindset, and from Jaden and everybody else. So Jaden has been talking about this a lot. I will say this, I was using Perplexity's Comet a ton, which I was really liking, but I was also sort of like trying to figure out when to do the use cases for it. So I was liking that. So I'm now wondering, is OpenAI cracking the code on an AI browser? Because there's no doubt that over the coming year or something like that, this is going to be the new way of browsing, which is kind of an exciting time in history. So Jaden, everything you got, I'm going to be learning from you here too, again. So hit me with it. What do you got?
Okay. Well, the first thing we got to kick this off with is everyone is saying this is a shot across the bow at Google. And so when this announcement came out, Google's stock, I'm showing like a 5-day view on this, but their stock absolutely plummeted, going from 257 all the way down to 246, which I guess
That's
a lot of people are like,
crazy.
that's not plummeting, that's not crazy. But for Google, it was like, I think it was the equivalent of $160 billion that got wiped off of their valuation like instantly. So that was crazy. And then everyone realized that it was just so Google Chrome has a project called Chromium. It's basically Google Chrome is open source and they let anyone make a browser with it. I think they did this initially to stave off everybody that said they have a monopoly on the browser industry, because they basically do. Like, that's the only browser most people use. So they made this open source version. I love it. I have been using it for the last 5 years, a spinoff of Google Chrome. It's called Brave, but it's basically Google Chrome that just blocks all ads from a company. So it's a really cool thing that Google does. And in all of this talk, all the browser war talks where people are talking about how Google is going to have, like the government basically told them they had to spin off Google Chrome and sell it to someone else. Perplexity put in a bid to buy it and they appealed it. I don't think it's actually going to get sold. But I think Google saw this moment coming for a long time. And so they built that project. And personally, I actually don't think Google should be forced to divest Google Chrome. I think it's ridiculous. I'm not a big monopoly guy. I think Google's a very big, powerful company. Maybe there's other parts of it, like YouTube, that could be spun off. I'm sure Google's shuddering at the thought of that. But I don't think Google Chrome is that. And I think they've definitely done what's in the best interest of the whole world by making Chromium. So all that to say, once everyone realized that this new OpenAI Atlas browser was just Chromium with ChatGPT bolted on, you could see the stock price absolutely recovered and actually went up $180 billion in market cap. So crashes 160 billion and then rebounds up 180 billion. Basically, everyone realizes Google isn't going anywhere. It slid a little bit since then, but I'm not gonna, we're not following the hour by hour Google stock price on this episode. I just wanted to give you the overall market sentiment coming off of this big announcement. Okay, so as you can imagine, I'll just give you the overview of basically what it looks like. And if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you can see me screen share. Otherwise, I'll just explain it for everyone on Apple. But essentially, you get a browser that's very much like Google Chrome, you could imagine. And the cool thing about Chromium, by the way, the last thing I'll say on this before you tell me to shut up about Chromium, because I know I've talked about it too long, is because it's built on top of Google Chrome, any plugins that were built for Google Chrome also work on any Chromium browser. So that's basically the cool part of it. You get the whole code so you can make a browser, and then all of the extensions. So like personally, I use password manager plugins. I used to use ad blockers before I used Brave. But anyways, I used to have a whole bunch of plugins I would use for different things. And now all of those you could get them on any browser. So you could get them on Atlas too. Okay. So when you go to it, you're going to see something that looks a lot like Google Chrome. And there is a button in the top right-hand corner that just says ChatGPT. Once you click that, a little side panel opens up that is your ChatGPT thread. This is very similar to, it's exactly the same as Comet. It's very similar to what Microsoft has done with Edge. And I've sung praises to Edge. Edge came out first. Comet came out second. Comet was a little bit more in depth than Edge. And then OpenAI has come out third. Now, the cool thing that OpenAI has done with Atlas is they've integrated basically all of the capabilities of ChatGPT Operator, which, by the way, I used to pay $200 a month for before they kind of moved agents into ChatGPT. I didn't find it quite good enough. And now I feel like it finally has its breakthrough moment where it is 90% there. I would say it was at 75% before. It's 90%. It's not 100%, but it's pretty dang good. I'll go over some of the things I've been using it for, but I'll tell you the use cases and I'll get Connor's take on this.
Yep.
Essentially, what you can do, you can chat with it just like you would chat with ChatGPT. It will give you answers just like ChatGPT. So people are like, okay, whatever. Why do I need a built-in ChatGPT button? You can also tell it to take control of your screen and do tasks for you, which is kind of cool because with ChatGPT agents, it was its own virtual private machine, meaning it was completely segregated from your computer. It was its own device. It was off, somewhere far away. If you told it to do something, it would be like, okay, well, give me your login to your Gmail if you want me to read your Gmail. This is different. This, you go to your Gmail, you find a thread. I actually did this recently. I'll tell you on my whole use case, but you could have it read the thread, talk to you about the thread, interact with it. It's like basically all the features I'm like, Google, what are you doing? You got to add this to Gmail. You got to add this to Drive. You got to add this. Okay, well, I don't really need Google to do any of those things anymore because now with this browser extension, ChatGPT can look at all the data and it can manipulate it, meaning it can click, drag, drop, download. It can do
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
that you ask it to do. So that's what I've been excited about so far. But
Wait,
Connor,
okay,
I'll
wait,
turn
let
it
me
over to you.
okay, I have so many questions. I'm so glad you did a deep dive into this because again, I was on the road. I didn't even see it when it came out. Are you telling me that this sounds like an infomercial? Jaden, are you telling me that
Oh,
I can
wait,
get for
there's more.
$19? But wait, there's more. By the way, guys, speaking of $19 a month, Jaden's AI is unbelievable. This is a thing where if you are using different kinds of things like ChatGPT, or if you're using Claude, or if you're using Gemini, it's an amazing way to switch between those and compare answers. Now, and I was thinking of you yesterday because I was up in Boston with Google looking at their new agent thing. I got invited up and I was like, man, the AI box does this really well. Just like creating your own workflows. No code idiots like me can do this, guys. Check out AIbox.ai. Okay, sorry, back to our regularly scheduled programming here. But Jaden, on the browser, are you saying, I want to make sure I understand, are you saying that when you're using this, first of all, it's integrated into Chrome, which is super cool, but that you don't have to give agents like your login anymore, that like this
No,
already has a login? Okay, that's on. Okay, so a couple of things
that's
on
big,
this.
right?
It's huge because the reason I wasn't using agents, excuse me, the reason I wasn't using, OpenAI's agent is it just felt demo-y and it felt interesting, but it was like, but then it was like, oh, I can't do this. And then like, it was still just part of the process. The reason I loved Perplexity's Comet, and the reason I loved Microsoft's Edge browser too, the kind of like the Copilot browser, was that it just felt natural. It felt like the future almost more than a lot of things I'd experienced. And the reason is I was demoing these a lot. In fact, I was demoing these on stage. Just that's how much confidence I had that I could probably get something to work. And the coolest thing was just voice. So you sort of see this, you're like, hey, can you fill out this whole page? Or hey, can you just like actually write this email? I'm not a big write this email for me. But if I'm on there and over on the side, you sort of like see Perplexity, the Comet thing, kind of like weaving in and out, or you see Copilot, and Copilot's like, what do you need to talk to it? Felt like, and I'm going to use this word carefully, game changer, because that felt like I was, at my home by myself. I wasn't sort of sounding like an idiot in front of other people, but it was just really speeding up the process. The problem was that it wasn't doing all these things you're talking about, which is, integration. The other thing is that it has memory in here, still. Like if you have memory in your ChatGPT, the moat, I think, maybe that kind of like memory. And I think you're right. I think that the other thing, so I'm going to come back to get the exact answers around all this, but from you, but the other thing that seemed exciting to me is that we're starting to see like Voltron, all these big pieces coming together. Like agents by themselves, computer use by itself, it's okay. But now a browser by itself, okay, like all that kind of stuff, voice by itself, okay, that's interesting. Like all these things by themselves are interesting. But now, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see this all coming together. I don't think we're there yet, but I'm starting to see how it's all coming together to act really in an integrative way, right?
100%. And I'll give you the two use cases that I recently did.
Yeah.
One with Comet, and then I'll give you a couple that I've done with OpenAI. So Comet, I was recently using it just last week as well, test driving it. And I have an upcoming trip I'm going on. And so I just told it like basically voice to text in the most basic form, like, hey, I got to go somewhere between this date and this date. I want direct flights. I want something that's like leaves in the morning and it needs to be blah, 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 like loosely just a blob of text. And I was like, go like find me my flight. So I went, found my flight, pulled up the whole booking page for me, which was like just super useful. Then I was like, okay, go book the flight. I didn't give it any information about myself and I didn't give it a login. I wasn't logged into my account. But it was 100% going to go and try to do that full booking for me, which was really cool. It was going to go and it was
By the
going to
way, Jaden,
go.
I think you have a visitor. So let me pick this up for a second to
Sure.
sort of say, like, by the way, guys, this is what I love about this podcast with Jaden is that he and I are both dads. He and I are cats. Like the other day on the podcast, my dog came in barking like crazy, and Jaden quickly like muted me. Anyway, sorry, that was a quick disruption. So Jaden has 3 amazing kids. I have 2 kids in high school. Okay, back to our show for a second here. The thing about the browser, though, Jaden, that I was just blown away by when I was using Perplexity's comment, and this is why I'm so excited to use OpenAI, is just this idea that when you are browsing, I think we're so used to the limitations of browsing that it's going to take everybody a minute to realize like, oh, it can kind of go above and beyond and actually do these other things. But I think so many people are going to be stuck in their old way of browsing that it's going to take Google themselves to actually start switching slowly there in the same way they started to do AI mode. Remember with like a Google search to kind of get people used to it a little bit. I think that Chrome itself is really going to have to sort of like start making this change in order to like get everybody actually changing the way they do this. Guys, this to me is unbelievably exciting. But remember, when you test these things out, don't just test them and come to a conclusion based on what it can do now. I see this too often online, and I see this from a lot of influencers that I absolutely love and follow, but they make a snap decision. And they're making a snap decision based on day one technology. Like, this is not how we should be thinking about this. We should be thinking like, okay, where's this going to go? And the fact that you are listening to this podcast means that you are trying to look ahead. So again, the way that I want us all to be doing this at the same time is to be looking at this and saying like, okay, this is where we're going with this. This is where this is going to be. In 6 months, it's going to be here, because otherwise what people do, Jaden, too often, I think, is they say, oh, you know what? It's not that great. And then they lock that opinion into their mind for the next 6 months. And it's like, oh, they never use it again. So I think the big takeaway here as we're ending the show here is just to say like, don't forget to experiment. Jaden, I'll give you the last word on that.
Yeah, I think it's you definitely have to make sure that you're trying out everything. I'll say my last thing that I did with Atlas that I was really impressed with is I'm currently in the process of looking at a new distribution platform for like I have a whole network of shows, and there's all of these different companies. They all send me different contracts. All of their terms are super different, and they all have like it's like, we pay you this much for, like an ad spot, and we have like this much fill rate, but you got to pay this much for your bandwidth. Like there's just like so many factors that go into all of them. So I have like 4 different platforms. Anyways, so recently I went with Atlas. I opened up 4 different tabs, one with each contract from each company and the full email thread of each sales rep that was, talking to me about these different contracts. And I just told Atlas, like, read through all of the contracts, read through all of the email threads, because sometimes in the email, they'll say something that's like slightly different than the contract. And, you just want to make sure you flag everything. And I'm like, just make me a table that tells me exactly which one is like better. And anyways, it did an incredible job. It was so cool to I don't have to copy and paste anything. You just open the tab up and it can go make the whole thing. Maybe this really in-depth, analysis, which was really cool. So that was the analysis side that I found was really useful. The other use case that I loved was actually the last 3 episodes of this show that have been scheduled were completely edited. By the way, guys, I'll be double checking for quality, but like if there's any issues, I give ChatGPT Atlas a little space. It completely edited, cleaned up the audio. It
Amazing.
scheduled, it published, it came up with the titles, the description, like everything 100%. I wrote this giant 2-page document, and I'll be honest, I actually spent like the entire day yesterday working on this. So I would give it like a whole bunch of steps. It would get almost everything done. It would get hung up on one little thing. So I would like kind of phrase it, and I'd just kind of try to get it to reshoot the full thing until finally it got the entire thing done. So in the future, I probably am going to have our show producer just go and take this giant script, give it to ChatGPT Atlas, have it run the whole thing. He'll listen to the episode at the end, make sure everything sounds good, and we're good to go.
That's amazing. Amazing.
It's pretty impressive, though. It's getting much, much better. Anyways, thank you everyone so much for tuning into the podcast today. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will catch you guys all in the next show.